Greetings, Internet friends. AJ here, and I am with...
The 8-Bit Horse.
And we're back again with another Best Of video, this time for the Best of the Year 2015. And, a lot of people have complained that these videos are a little bit too long.
What?
Yeah, it's like, videos are usually around about 45 minutes long, and people think that's too much.
What?
So, you know what we're going to do about it?
What are we gonna do?
No, I mean, seriously, do you know what we're going to do about it?
No, what?
I don't know. I'm just going to make another 45-minute video. So we always start off the year with the same first category.
What is it?
It's the best updated re-release of a 2D video game. It seems like a lot of folks have cool games and then they decide to put more stuff in them, release a deluxe edition or whatever the case is. So we've always got some of those. So we're going to tear into it. And the nominees are Curse of the Crescent Isle DX by Adam Mowry. A re-release of the Xbox Live indie game from 2010, which is one of the best games on Xbox Live indie games, where you pick up and toss different kinds of enemies, and each one has a different effect on the environment. The re-release is a little bit glitchy by modern standards, but still pretty solid. Mute Crimson Plus by Iced Lizard Games. Another great Xbox Live indie game that was brought over to computers, but this one has a lot of improvements. The only problem I had before was kind of the crappy programmer art, but the new version has new art. It's still black and white with red blood, along with completely remixed levels, tougher bosses, and a bunch of new challenging levels at the end. And the original game is also included. Westerado Double Barreled by Ostrich Banditos. Originally a Flash game, the new one has a much larger world, more weapons, new playable characters to unlock, and a huge open world to explore and a great Western atmosphere. And the winner is...
Hey, wait.
What? This is the first category. You can't already have a problem, right?
No, what about Umahara Kawasa?
Umahara Kawasa. Well, so that was not really... It was an updated re-release. They just ported the game... They released it on Steam with just the regular game. So, yeah, Umahara Kawasa just came out in 2015, and actually it came out, and then the company that published it went out of business, and they took it off of Steam. But actually, as of January, it's back, so you can download it again. It's all a Super Famicom game with weird, cool bouncy grapple physics, super hard. Still check it out, but it technically is not a re-release, so doesn't count. Yes.
So who is the winner then?
Oh, yeah, let's find out who the winner is. So the winner is Westerado Double Barreled.
Yeah!
So, as mentioned, it was a Flash game originally, but the new version is much bigger. You can take sides. There's like a lot going on in the story where the actions that you take kind of sort of affects the outcome, but really affects the storyline as you go. Like you can team up with the American Indian folks or the army that's going against them, or the oil tycoon, oil baron people, all that stuff. So a lot to do, a lot of fun, and a very good update to that game.
Good choice.
Well, thank you. All right, next up we're going to do the most innovative 2D game from 2015, and the nominees are Adventures of Pip from TikTok Games. Lots of games have recently featured characters evolving from lower resolutions to higher resolutions through different eras, such as A Pixel Story, but this one has substantial differences between forms and lets the player switch between them, so each version has different abilities, and they each weigh different amounts, affecting how they interact with the environment. Axiom Verge from Thomas Happ Games. This game features a glitch gun that lets you alter the environment to create new platforms, cut through glitchy walls, and find secret areas, and you can also alter enemy behaviors, such as making them move or shoot more slowly, or crush solid walls instead of bouncing off of them. Keebles from Burnt Fuse. This is a construction game where you use different pieces to build a vehicle to traverse a physics-based environment and rescue little creatures called Keebles. At first, you just make a vehicle and let it go, kind of like Fantastic Contraption, but later on you get to add pieces that give you direct control, like rocket boosters and parachutes. A mini falafel adventure from Beatty Box. This game has a neat bomb boosting mechanic that you can use for combat and navigation. You can drop mines that spit out flames, and then use them to jump higher, and eventually flip them into the air for lots of crazy combat possibilities, especially against bosses. Ronin from Thomas Washlowick, and I hope I pronounced that properly. Ronin mixes ninja action with turn-based strategy where you have free movement, such as scaling walls, high jumps, grappling hooks, stealth kills, that kind of thing. But then when you're spotted, the game turns into a turn-based action game where you have to time out your jumps, your sword strikes, and your special moves, like teleporting to an enemy's location or tossing your sword across the screen to impale a guy. Titan Souls from Acid Nerve. In this game, you have a single arrow that you fire and draw back, and you have one-hit kills for yourself and the giant titans that you face. It's inspired a bit by Shadow of the Colossus. Power up the arrow to fire it across the screen and use your mind to draw it back, and you can win battles in just a few seconds or die just as quickly. And the winner for the most innovative 2D game from 2015
Yes?
Ronin.
Yeah!
So this one, like I said, it's a ninja action game, but then it goes turn-based, and you can hurl your sword through the air and like impale a guy, you know.
That's my favorite.
That is, yeah.
That's awesome.
Who doesn't love impaling people with swords?
Do we get to impale bunnies?
You don't get to impale any bunnies in this game. Just bad guys. And then an honorable mention in this category is a mini falafel adventure.
I like that one too.
Right, well, that's because it sounds very tasty.
I like falafel.
Who doesn't like falafel? So what is a falafel? I don't know. Anyway, so in this game you have like little mines and you drop them and you fling them in the air and it's a neat way to fight because it's one button, so you either hold the button to launch them or you can use it to boost. You try not to fall back in your own flame spouts, and it's a lot of fun. So the next category is going to be the best old school throwback.
Cool.
And when you run a 2D game site like we do, right? Good site, 8bithorse.com.
Yeah, it's awesome.
You get a lot of retro throwbacks. I mean, 2D games are kind of open to that. So we have a ton of nominees for this category, so we're going to blow through them real quick. And the nominees are Adventure in the Tower of Flight from Pixel Barrage Entertainment. This is a throwback to 8-bit action platforming games with a twist in that you fly instead of jumping, allowing for more vertically oriented levels. Adventures of Pip from TikTok Games, a throwback to 8 and 16-bit platformers, and the game plays on this since you start out as a single pixel and eventually earn the ability to transform into an 8-bit boy and then a 16-bit version. Axiom Verge from Thomas Happ Games, clearly inspired by the Metroid series, but throws in its own quirks with the glitch gun that can alter the environment and enemy behaviors, as well as lots of weapons and upgrades. Broforce from Free Lives. This is inspired by run-and-gun action games like Metal Slug and Contra with even more destruction, plus it's a throwback to classic action films with its larger-than-life caricatures of classic action heroes. Castle in the Darkness from Matt Cap. An old-school side-scrolling action RPG with an 8-bit style and loads of references to classic video games. Contiguous, the White Wind Ziggurat Chapter from Asido Sinza. The game has a limited color palette, simple animations, a basic moveset, limited lives, and super hard old-school difficulty that is unfair at times. The Curse of Isios from Loco Molito. The latest in a long line of retro action games from Loco Molito, this one's inspired by the stop-motion artistry of Ray Harryhausen with limited lives that you have to beat the game on one straight run. Curse of the Crescent Isle DX by Adam Mowry. A throwback to Super Mario Bros. 2 where you can pick up and toss enemies, but with a huge twist in that the enemies affect the environment and other enemies, allowing you to freeze water, change the size of enemies, and much more. Environmental Station Alpha from RV Hempuli Taikari. A super chunky low-res game that's a throwback to the Metroid series, even borrowing many enemy designs and tile layouts, offering an atmospheric open world with backtracking once you gain new abilities. Master Spy from Turbo Gun. Inspired by old-school action games where you have one mechanic that's permuted on to the nth degree. You have an invisibility cloak that slows you down when you use it, but you have to turn invisible and visible back and forth to get past enemies and bypass traps. A mini falafel adventure from Beatty Box. Inspired by Game Boy games and metroidvanias, This is a short game with minimal backtracking and simple sprite art and a neat bomb boosting mechanic that you use to kill bosses and navigate. Odalis, The Dark Call by Joymasher. A throwback to dark-toned games like Castlevania and Ghosts and Goblins with layered, branching level designs like Demon's Crest and huge, grotesque bosses. And it's a level-based metroidvania. Pink Heaven by Studio Pixel. This game has 2 hits and you're dead, limited continues, charming, colorful action platforming that's tough but surmountable with practice. A Pixel Story from Lamplight Studios. A throwback to classic platformers and also features a character evolving from a pixel into a boy as he moves from his simple Pong-like world into later video game generations. Stormfront, The Mutant War from Andrada Games. A throwback to top-down shooters like Commando, Mercs, Outzone, and Shock Troopers with a bit of bullet hell added in for a good measure and more difficulty, plus modern twin-stick movement and aiming. And the... yes?
Are there any games that weren't nominated in this category?
Well, yeah, so there's a lot. Like I said, it's a 2D game site, so a lot of some retro games. But I got a winner right here. It's in that tasty little envelope here. Can you taste the winner?
I can taste it.
All right, so the winner is Odalis, The Dark Call.
Hey, I remember them. They made Oniken.
That's right, yeah. The people that made Odalis were the same guys that made Oniken, which was our winner for our best throwback video game in 2012.
Yes, it was.
So there you go. Their best old school throwback 2 years in a row. Or not 2 years in a row. 2 years. What do you call it when they're not in a row? 2 years.
Non-sequential.
Non-sequential. That's it. So we also have a couple of honorable mentions here. So one is Axiom Verge, which is basically a love letter to Super Metroid. It's like this atmospheric game. There's tons of optional pickups, lots of weapons, the glitch gun, of course, a little robot that you can control, just all kinds of neat things. And Master Spy. This one it's a really, really basic mechanic. You basically just, there's no combat, you can just turn invisible, and that's it. So you use it to get past guards, but then like animals like dogs and eventually like tigers, they're not fooled. And then there's like motion sensors and all kinds of traps you have to get past, and they just keep escalating the difficulty. It's crazy.
Would you like to see me turn invisible?
That'd be cool. Let's do it. Bam! Oh, he's good. All right. What are we doing next here? Next category, right?
Well, I have a confession to make.
Okay. What's your confession?
I like to set things on fire.
That's actually not terribly surprising. Yeah. So what, you like to set things on fire. So what does that mean? What?
I think we should have a category called Best Fire.
Okay. Yeah, we did Best Fire last year. I was worried you were going to say we should set something on fire. So,
well, we could do that too, but...
Yeah, well, these are digital downloads, so I'm going to set a digital download on fire now.
Kerblooey!
Kerblooey. All right, so the nominees for Best Fire, that's what we're doing, right?
Yes.
Nominees for the Best Fire are...
And then I'm going to set you on fire.
Oh, I can't wait. Aru's Awakening from Luminox Games. Has some nice looking fire along with some dazzling illustrated smoke and water effects. Lots of just neat effects all throughout this game. Jotun from Thunder Lotus Games. You fight a giant guy with a lava beard who drops fireballs, cracks the ground to reveal lava, and basically just sort of a fire-themed boss encounter in this one. Ori and the Blind Forest from Moon Studios. This game has spirit flames plus pools of lava, lava falls, concentrated fire beams, burning branches that fall, and an entire lava escape sequence. So lots of fire here too. And the winner is...
Hey, wait.
Okay, again? What's going on?
Aren't those all HD games?
Yeah, they're all high-definition games.
Well, last year we had some pixelated games, so what's going on?
Yeah, so last year we asked the question, what's better, Pixel Fire or HD Fire? And this year all of our nominees are HD games, so I'm starting to think HD Fire is the way to go.
As long as it's fire.
I know, pixelated games, you gotta pick up the slack there on the fire. So ready for a winner?
Yes.
Okay, the winner is Ori and the Blind Forest.
Cool.
So it's a beautiful game to begin with, lots of beautiful effects, but lots of fire and beautiful fire, and that's how it goes. So, winner!
Kerblooey!
Kerblooey. All right, so let's move on to the next category.
Wait.
Yes?
I want to do another one.
You just did one.
But, dude, you did 3 in a row.
Okay, so what's your next category?
And plus, I'm your boss.
Okay, you are the boss.
I am.
Okay, so what do you want to do, boss?
Best weirdest game.
Best weirdest game. Okay, I'm down with that. Let's do it.
And the nominees are
Bard to the Future from Battle Bard Games. A medieval battle bard really has to pee, and he finds a blue porta potty that transports him through time, TARDIS style, and he comes to modern day where he's been summoned by a wizard, or at least a kid playing a pen and paper RPG who thinks he's a wizard. The knight goes out LARPing with the kids, thinks it's a serious battle, and ends up murdering their friend while playing along. A mini falafel adventure from Beatty Box. As you can probably tell from the title, this is a game that wears its weird on its sleeve. You control a falafel who is off to rescue his falafel friend and fights against a guy with a sentient afro and moves around by setting off explosives. And there's a boss that you literally have to eat in order to gain weight to allow you to move underwater. Not a Hero from Roll 7. A very strange game where you play as a team of oddball assassins that you unlock as you go, each with different weapons and special attacks, working for a purple anthropomorphic bunny named Bunny Lord, who talks like a squeaking balloon. You're trying to help get him elected by killing his enemies and guys that can harm his campaign, and one of your weapons is an exploding kitten. Rimmed Ressa from Morgendog. Almost all of humanity is destroyed after their homeworld is blown up by a giant asteroid. This is a somber poetic space adventure that is all about isolation, with calming music and an astronaut protagonist that occasionally ponders his existence or discusses the toll that the multi-year journey is taking on him. Sunless Sea from Fail Better Games. This is a roguelike where you play as a ship captain in a dark Lovecraftian world set in the developer's Fallen London universe. It has great writing that sets a tone and dark atmosphere, and you have a crew that can go crazy and eventually starve to death. The Swindle from Size 5 Games. Cyberpunk meets steampunk in this heist game that takes place in an alternate 19th century London with computers, robots, and security systems, and you plan out your capers and make gadgets in your dirigible above the city. And the winner for the best weirdest 2D game in 2015 is... Well, you should know because you're the one that voted for it. Not a Hero.
Yeah!
So why did you pick this one?
Well, 'cause you get to kill bunnies.
No, you don't get to kill, but you're working for a bunny. The bunny's your boss. He's a big...
Oh.
Yeah, like I work for a horse, they work for a bunny. Yeah, he's the boss. But is it still the best, weirdest game then? Yeah?
Yeah, I guess so.
Okay, well, so you get to unlock a lot of characters, right, as you play?
Yes.
So who's your favorite character? Why'd you like this game so much?
I got to unlock the Jesus.
The Jesus? And why do you like the Jesus?
'Cause nobody messes with the Jesus.
Nobody messes. I don't think that's the line exactly. It's no...
Well, this is a PG-13 show.
Ah, okay. Nobody messes with the Jesus.
That's right.
All right, and the other, the honorable mention for the best weirdest is, once again, it's Mini Falafel Adventure.
Yeah!
It's getting nominated a lot, but it's a totally weird game. Anthropomorphic falafels. Yeah.
Yeah.
And anthropomorphic bunnies. This is the anthropomorphic category.
Exactly.
All right, so our next category is going to be the most ambitious 2D game in 2015.
Woo!
And the nominees are Axiom Verge from Thomas Happ Games. The game world is very large, with lots of themed areas and big bosses, tons of exploration, loads of weapon pickups, most of which are entirely optional, and of course many ability upgrades that allow you to backtrack and reach new areas. There's a really big map with, unfortunately, no fast travel, big cool-looking bosses, optional stuff, and sequence breaking. Castle in the Darkness from Matt Cap. An old-school side-scrolling action RPG with an absolutely huge map and tons of unique monsters and bosses. The game is practically a sprite art gallery. There's lots of optional backtracking, but going back gives you better gear, and of course, there's loads of references to classic games. Ori and the Blind Forest from Moon Studios. A large open world filled with lots of details, lush artwork, lots of parallax, no loading screens, and a great musical score. 2D art with expressive 3D characters, it's a really good Metroidvania adventure on top of it all. Even though you gain new abilities and backtrack per Metroidvania standards, the level design is set up so that you only have short amounts of backtracking, and usually you're pushed forward into a new path to get back to where you were previously. Westerado Double-Barreled from Ostrich Banditos. This game has a large open world with a couple of towns, a forest, mountains, a desert, mines. The bad guy's random. You can team up with different factions and double-cross them. You're a gunslinger in the Old West. You're trying to get your revenge on the guy that killed your family in a huge Wild West adventure. And the winner for the most ambitious 2D video game in 2015
is
Ori and the Blind Forest. So this game, in addition to being a solid Metroidvania with really good level design, lots of neat ability upgrades, it's just gorgeous. Like, the music's great, the visuals are fantastic. That's just a very immersive world, which a lot of times in a 2D game, you don't really get that quite as much.
Not really,
because a lot of them are, a lot of games are pretty gamey, which I like. That's fine. But this game is. It's got a good storyline to it. It's the whole package. It's a very ambitious, big, beautiful game all the way around. So
yes.
So you've got a category coming up here, right?
I do.
So what's it going to be this time?
It is my favorite, the About Damn Time Award.
The It's About Damn Time Award for games that took a really, really long time to develop.
Yes.
And there were a lot of long-running dev games this year that finally came out in 2015, so let's see what they are.
It's about damn time.
And the nominees are Axiom Verge from Thomas Happ Games. Part-time development started on this game in 2010, and we added it to the 2D radar in 2012, making it one of our longest-running entries. The Curse of Isios from Locomolito. Development started in 2010, but Locomolito stopped for a while to work on Maldita Castilla. Environmental Station Alpha from RV Hempuli Tekari. This game started development in 2011. Feist from Bits and Beasts. Development on this game originally started in 2008, and it was listed on 2D Radar in 2010, and actually took so long to come out we delisted the game because it looked like it was never coming, and then re-added it when they put more development details out. Ori and the Blind Forest from Moon Studios. Development started in 2011, and then the studio became a first-party developer for Microsoft, and they put some more stuff in there. All right, so your About Damn Time Award. I got your winner right here in the envelope.
Let me see.
All right, you should know, but here we go. Ready?
Axiom Verge.
Axiom Verge. So that one
started in 2010.
Right, but Feist actually they started development in 2008, right?
Yes.
Like a longer development time.
But it was a better game.
Oh, Axiom Verge?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
that's why it won.
So yeah, Axiom Verge took less time to come out, but in the end, it was sort of more worth the wait. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly.
That's what he's saying. I understand it. Don't you understand it?
Yeah.
We all understand.
It was about damn time.
It was about damn time. That was we were really looking forward to that one for a long time, and it's one of those, like, the guy worked on it. Thomas Happ worked on it on his own for a long time, and then towards the end, I think brought on some additional developers to help finish it out and get it out in 2015 after whatever 5 years of development.
And it was awesome.
It was a pretty solid game.
Yeah.
All right. So next up is one of my favorite categories. And
yeah, it's your turn now.
It is. It's the best use of brutal difficulty in a game. And as usual, again, we run a 2D game site, and that's sort of licensed for people to make really hard games.
Yep.
And you were tough on us again this year. So we're gonna give out some awards. Best use of brutal difficulty in a 2D game in 2015.
And the nominees are
what he said. Katijus, the White Wind Ziggurat chapter from Aceto Sinza. In this game, you don't always know what weapons you need. There's blind jumps that can kill you very quickly if you don't know they're coming, which you don't because they're blind jumps, and very short enemy telegraphs. But the game does have lots of characters and crazy moments, even though it's tough and kind of unfair on an old school level. The Curse of Isios from Locomolito. This is an arcade-style game where you have limited lives and continues, so you need to beat the entire game in one sitting, but there's also an alternate path that leads to a different weapon and gives you a better ending. Curses and Chaos from Tribute Games. In this game, you battle through wave after wave of enemies and then eventually face a boss, and then death shows up if you don't beat the game quickly enough. The game has mostly melee combat, but lots of single-use projectiles, and you collect materials to build more powerful spells, and you can eventually reach a better ending. Downwell from Moppin. This game is super hard. You need to get good at it, strategize, switch between weapons for permanent ammo and health upgrades, and you need to chain together lots of attacks without touching the ground in order to restore your health, because otherwise it's rare and expensive. Hotline Miami 2, Wrong Number, from Denaton Games. This is the follow-up to the original Hotline Miami, and it offers the same bloody, brutal action and quick deaths as the original, with guns, knives, blunt objects, and sprays of blood, forcing players to play smart and take cover. IZ-Bot, from Ruxar. This is a precision platformer along the lines of Super Meat Boy, although it doesn't really get that hard until later in the game. You have to move fast, avoid spikes, make huge jumps, explode enemies or avoid them, and grab optional gems to add a bit of extra challenge. Master Spy from Turbogun. Even in the early going, there's little margin for error, and you have to understand how your speed is affected by turning invisible, and make multiple switches in succession, sometimes in mid-jump, and you need to make a flawless run through each section. Mute Crimson Plus from Iced Lizard Games. The first game was pretty tough, but the new game is even bigger with tougher challenges at the end and remixed levels with tougher bosses. Oblatus from Connor Ullman. This is a roguelike where the player controls a small warrior with a spear and a shield, and there are some changes to the world each time the player dies, which returns him to the start of the game. The starting area lets you branch out in many directions, and you can jab your spear or throw it, and it returns to you after a few seconds, or you can walk over and grab it. Odalis, the Dark Call from Joy Masher. You have a short-range weapon and face off against mobile enemies, plus projectile tossers, requiring tactical combat that's tough but fair, in order to move in and strike during proper openings, and there are some really tough boss encounters. Sturmfront, the Mutant War, from Andrada Games. Death returns you to the start of the level, except in boss fights, which are still pretty hard, that send you back a little bit, and there's a timer that counts down, which is the battery life for your cyborg, and you die if your timer runs out. And the winner for the best use of brutal difficulty in a 2D game is...
Is it Hotline Miami?
No, actually it's not. It's down.
What?
So, well, Hotline Miami, so that's actually the reason, one of the reasons why this category exists, best use of brutal difficulty.
Right, exactly.
Because in the first game, like, you had to be really careful, like, if you made a noise or whatever, people come swarm on your position and kill you instantly, so you had to, like, it made you change up your strategy.
It was super brutal.
It was. You go in with, like, a baseball bat and stuff like that, and then try to be silent and get a gun, and then start whacking guys. With the new game, actually, the levels are bigger and more complex, so it's a lot easier to get shot from off screen or shot through a window, so you still die. It still has the same kind of setup, but sometimes the death is not, you don't really feel like you deserved it because you didn't know there was a guy gonna kill you.
Okay, well, that's disappointing, but okay, so
Well,
what was the actual winner then?
So the best use of brutal difficulty is definitely Downwell. So
Okay.
in Downwell, you got a guy who's got boots on his feet, and you're just always falling down the shaft, and
Like this?
sort of like that, exactly. So it's super difficult. You start the game over from scratch each time, and on your first attempt, if you even make it to the second level, you're doing a pretty good job. And it forces you, because you'll die or restart, it forces you to basically come up with a better strategy and learn all the different weapons, because you're sort of cycling through everything. So it kills you a lot, but it forces you to learn to get better, and there's a lot. It's a big game, and it gets pretty hard.
Okay, well, fair enough then.
An honorable mention in this category is Oblatus. So Oblatus, start out from the middle of the map, and you can go off to different areas, fight different bosses.
Over here, over there.
Over everywhere. But the game, it's a roguelike, but the developers kind of got around a lot of the temptation to just give you more power and more strength and more abilities as you go through future sessions. So every time you restart, you have the exact same abilities. So you might walk in and see some towering guy and scream and run in fear, like we did the first time. But you
That was a
basically...
reenactment.
That was a good... You never get any better, you never get any new skills. You have to get good at the game. So later on when you face that same towering guy, it's, he's just another guy, I know how to take him down. So it's brutal difficulty that forces you to get, to improve your skills to get further through the game. So.
Alright.
All right, so I guess you've got another category coming up right now, right?
Yes, I do.
All right, so what's this one?
This one is another one of my favorites. It's the best game starring an animal.
You love animals, right?
I do.
I wonder why that is.
Because I'm an animal.
That could be it. All right, best 2D game starring an animal in 2015.
And the nominees are...
Let's rock it. Aru's Awakening from Luminox Games. You play as Aru, the champion of dawn, as he sets out to save the world from the encroaching night in a teleportation-based platformer with a sort of giant ox-like character. Dragon's Wake from Brainbox Software. This is a coming-of-age tale where you play as a dragon. Originally, you hatch from an egg, and you slowly get bigger and more powerful as the game goes on, and some of your power-ups involve eating other animals. Feist from Bits and Beasts. You play a spiky-haired, fuzzy-wuzzy forest creature in a hostile environment up against ticks and giant fuzzy monsters and other weird creatures. Ori and the Blind Forest from Moon Studios. You play as an orphaned forest spirit who must restore the decaying forest and help his dying adoptive mother. Alright, so the best game starring an animal this time around. We've got, what do you got here?
Dragon's Wake.
Dragon's Wake.
Yeah.
So what makes this the best game? Because I thought, like, Ori and the Blind Forest is in the category, right? And that's a pretty phenomenal game.
Yes.
But, so Dragon's Wake, what makes that the winner?
You get to kill and eat bunnies.
That's true. You get, yeah.
Yeah, that hands down.
So
hooves down.
Hooves down. You love games where you get to kill bunnies.
Yes, I do.
And I don't know what's going on, but it seems like every year there's some video game where you get to kill bunnies.
And that's why I love my life.
So, no idea what's going on. So Dragon's Wake, that's your winner?
Yep.
Even though Ori and the Blind Forest?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Nope.
No?
Dead bunnies.
Dead bunnies. The Trump
always wins.
Oh, okay. Well, that's okay, because it's not a real category anyway. You know what is a real category, though?
Which one?
Ninjas.
Ninjas?
Yeah. Best game starring an animal? Totally fake category. Best game starring a ninja? That's real. Everybody loves ninjas.
Everybody.
Ninjas, monkeys, and fire trucks.
Yep.
Those three things you add into any video game and they're better.
You want to see me be a ninja?
Let's see it. Oh. All right. And the nominees are Contagious, The White Wind, Ziggurat Chapter from Macedo Senza. This game has a limited color palette, anime-style cutscenes, a focus on choice with many endings, and you can kill or spare each of the bosses with different results with your sword-wielding protagonist. Master Spy from Turbogun. You're a badass ninja-style warrior for hire who lives by a strict code. He's honest, but he doesn't kill if he doesn't have to. In fact, there's actually no killing in the game, and he wields a cloak of invisibility. Mute Crimson Plus from Iced Lizard Games. The game features a wall-climbing, sword-swinging ninja that has to dodge spikes and lasers to take down bosses. The game is mostly about the platforming challenges, which are numerous, plus there's gravity challenges, time-based challenges where the ground is falling away beneath you. Basically, lots of employment of your ninja skills. Ronin from Tomasz Waszlawek. During the action portions of the game, you have free movement, which includes scaling walls, jumping high, using a grappling hook, and stealth kills until you are spotted, and then you go into turn-based with lots of jumps and sword strikes, and you have to plan out your ninja moves. And the winner for the best 2D game starring a ninja
is...
real category right here. This band's work.
I hate you.
It's Mute Crimson Plus.
Yay!
So this was originally an Xbox Live indie game way back in 2010 or whatever. We said that earlier. Who knows?
Yes.
Anyway, so it was an outstanding game, but most people didn't get to play it because it was on Xbox Live Indie Games, so not a lot of people were into that. But now it's on Steam. It's on, you can actually go out and buy it for your PC. And they completely redid the game. It's like remixed everything. New levels, new bosses.
New ninjas?
Same ninja, but better graphics.
Aww.
Like before, like when you jumped, you were like literally like a rotating square. Now you're like a full-on ninja. And it's solid. If you missed out on this ninja game, which you probably did, now is your chance to go out there and get yourself some Mute Crimson Plus.
On Steam.
On Steam. That's the place where you buy games.
Yeah.
Steam.
Steam, you can send my check to my house.
There you go. 8bithorse.com, Steam. Just send it on over.
That's right.
All right. So the next category is the best puzzler or puzzle platformer.
All right.
And the nominees are Camera Obscura from Anteater Games. The Camera Obscura has been featured in a number of movies and games, most notably in the Fatal Frame series. Here it's used to leave an after image of the world behind, and the player uses this to create floating platforms and to manipulate creatures in the environment to activate switches and to get further through. Curse of the Crescent Isle DX from Adam Mowry. Here you can pick up and toss enemies, but the twist is that enemies affect the environment and other enemies, so you can use a drill to dig through rocks, use a freezing enemy to freeze water and fireballs, you can flip gravity, and some even make enemies quadruple in size. Feist from Bits and Beasts. In this game you have to complete a number of physics-based challenges to work your way through the world, including tossing rocks, dodging traps, using enemies against each other, using cockaburs to stick to things and climb up, etc. Keebles from Burnt Fuse. This is a construction game that doles out new pieces very slowly over time, but allows you to eventually build whatever you like, from high-speed dune buggies to slow multi-wheeled crawlers to hovering jet-powered things to a balloon-suspended unicycle. When you die, you start the level over, but there's a 3-level hint system that gives you a little bit of a clue about what you need to do without completely giving the puzzle away. Mighty Switch Force Academy from Way Forward. This is a continuation of the Mighty Switch Force series, but introduces a few new concepts, including screen wrapping and gravity flipping, and you have challenges where you have to figure out how to get to all the Hooligan Sisters, including infinite falling loops where you're like falling off the bottom of the screen and appearing on the top. A Pixel Story from Lamplight Studios. There's no combat in this game, it's all environmental challenges, most of which are overcome through teleportation, as Pixel drops his hat and can zap himself back to it. Sort of works as a makeshift checkpoint, allowing for some complex puzzle solutions, since your momentum is preserved when you teleport. And the winner for the best puzzler or puzzle platformer is Camera Obscura.
Yay!
So yeah, this is, of the bunch, this is the most pure puzzle platforming experience. It's all about using the camera to figure things out, like how to get to the higher platforms and how to either defeat enemies or move the enemies around and make them do stuff for you to reach places you can't. So it's not the prettiest game in the world. It has some pretty simple artwork, good design, but it's kind of plain tiles and that kind of thing. You know, that's how it goes.
It was still awesome.
Yeah, total puzzle platformer gameplay. So the next up, we're going to go for the best platformer in 2D platformer 2015. You know how it goes. Platformer.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Best platformer of 2015. The nominees are
Aru's Awakening from Luminox Games. The game has some light puzzle elements, but is primarily action-focused with running and jumping and well-timed teleportations, and the player also has to overcome a number of multi-phase bosses that can only be defeated through teleportation-based challenges and damaging the bosses indirectly. Adventure in the Tower of Flight from Pixel Barrage Entertainment. So this is a platformer where you fly instead of jump, allowing for some more vertically oriented level designs. You can kill enemies with your sword, get tons of treasure, find secret passages to more treasure, and get treasures that allow new abilities like an air dash and a bow and arrows. Adventures of Pip from TikTok Games. In this game you can evolve from a single pixel to an 8-bit version to a 16-bit version, and each of these has different weights. So, for instance, in water, the pixel version will float to the surface, the 8-bit version can swim freely, and the 16-bit version sinks. You frequently need to switch between forms, but there are sometimes harder challenges where you need to do this with the proper timing while jumping. Ink from Zach Bell Games. Ink is a platformer where you can't see the world around you, and you slowly reveal the environment with ink by moving along surfaces and exploding upon death. There are short challenge levels meant to be beaten in under 30 seconds with more complex layouts, enemies, and turrets, increasing across 75 levels. IZBot from Ruxar. This is a precision platformer along the lines of Super Meat Boy, but not quite as difficult. You have to move fast, avoid spikes, make huge jumps, and blow up enemies and get optional gems, which add a little bit more to the challenge, and there are some occasional difficulty spikes along the way. Master Spy from Turbogun. So this is the game where you have an invisibility cloak, and you have to complete platforming challenges while also making yourself visible and invisible to avoid guards, overcome traps, get past obstacles, and eventually run like mad to get through dangerous obstacle courses of deadly electricity and crushing death. Mute Crimson Plus from Iced Lizard Games. This game is practically a study in platformer design. There's wind, like the Super Mario Bros. Lost levels, there's conveyor belts, there's crumbling walls and floors, there's multi-directional gravity, and there's also improvements over the original game with a better balance and better boss fights. Nub's Adventure from I Make Games. This is an open-world platformer starring a little antenna-topped guy with a boomerang on a quest to rebuild his home, and along the way he also gets to control a couple of creatures, including a floating wisp and a giant tunneling underground worm. Shovel Knight, Plague of Shadows DLC from Yacht Club Games. In this game you control Plague Knight as he moves through a lot of the environments from the original Shovel Knight, but he has a very small jump, so he uses a double jump and boosted bomb jumps to navigate the environment. Plus there's a lot of customization on the different types of bombs he uses with longer fuse, higher lobs, etc., none of which actually make the game a whole lot easier. And the winner for the best platformer is Shovel Knight, Plague of Shadows.
No.
Yes, right here.
No.
See? It says it.
Let me see.
It says it right there, look.
I see, but that's downloadable content.
Yeah, it is. It's downloadable content. So
explain yourself.
So Plague of Shadows is DLC for the original Shovel Knight. And normally we probably wouldn't include like DLC as its own standalone thing.
No, we would not.
However, controlling the game as Plague Knight basically changes the entire game. The only thing this game doesn't have is new graphics. So you're visiting a lot of the same areas, but you tackle them in a completely different way. The way you move around the environment, all the challenges, all the bosses, like, it's a whole different experience playing with Plague Knight.
Okay, I'll give it to you this time.
So that's your best platformer.
Okay.
Have a couple of honorable mentions. So we have Adventures of Pip, which we've talked about a couple times here.
Yes.
You can change between different forms to get through the level, and each form has a different impact on the level.
Yes.
And Mute Crimson Plus, which is a ninja game, but it's like you do kill some enemies, but they're all like one-hit kills with your sword. Like, you know, you're not doing.
Well, you are a ninja after all.
Exactly. No complex sword combat. It's all about getting through the levels. Most of the challenges are just about getting through, where enemies are more of a thing to get in your way while you're trying to complete difficult platforming.
Well, that's pretty much life in general.
There you go. So the next category is going to be the best action RPG or action adventure.
Ah!
And the nominees are Apotheon from Alien Trap Games. These are the developers behind Capsized, and they've returned with an action RPG set in ancient Greece with authentic Bronze Age weapons and many of the major characters from Greek mythology and graphics like Greek pottery art. Axiom Verge from Thomas Happ Games. A game with a very large world, lots of themed areas, big bosses, lots of exploration, lots of ability upgrades, and it's kind of a love letter to games like Super Metroid. Castle in the Darkness from Matt Cap. This is an old-school side-scrolling action RPG with a lot of unique monsters, a lot of places to explore, a lot of optional areas to get into, a lot of equipment that you can unlock by exploring previous areas. Environmental Station Alpha from Arvi Hempuli Taikari. This game is heavily influenced by the Metroid series, offering more than a dozen bosses to fight, many of which are multi-phase boss encounters, and sometimes there's environmental obstacles that happen at the same time. Eventually you get in the new areas, go underwater, get a grappling hook to fling yourself around, and activate machinery that makes the challenges even harder. High Strangeness from Barnyard Intelligence Games. This is a top-down action RPG where you can switch between the 8-bit and 16-bit world to bypass environmental obstacles and enemies, and you throw CDs and drop firecrackers to hurt your foes, and also blow holes in the walls with firecrackers, but you have to be in the right dimension to see the cracks in the walls. Jotun from Thunder Lotus Games. This game takes its inspiration from Shadow of the Colossus and features a diminutive Norse warrior fighting gigantic creatures to make up for her inglorious death and make it into Valhalla. Detailed hand-drawn artwork and animations make it look like you're in a cartoon, although sometimes it can be a little hard to tell where you are when the camera is zoomed out and there's a big creature standing in front of you. There's lots happening, and it's possible to die in 2 or 3 hits. A Mini Falafel Adventure from Beatty Box. A black and white Game Boy inspired Metroidvania featuring a falafel who fights a whole lot of weird bosses with explosives, and you have to eat one of the bosses to get to one of the new areas. Mystic Bell from Last Dimension, an inventory-based puzzler from the same guy who developed Ultionis, where you play as a witch who needs to find the ingredients to a potion. You speak with NPCs and use inventory items to reach new areas in an open-world environment and gain new abilities to backtrack and explore more, including a dash, a double jump, and the ability to transform into a mouse to enter small openings. Odalis, the Dark Call from Joy Masher, featuring technical sword-based combat against mobile enemies, tough bosses, several secondary projectile weapons, lots of exploration and hidden items, and permanent health increases and optional upgrades. Ori and the Blind Forest from Moon Studios. It's a traditional metroidvania where you explore a big environment. One unique ability you unlock is called Bash, which could have supported an entire game on its own. You can use it to lock onto lanterns, enemies, projectiles, and fling yourself in one direction. You can fling projectiles in the other direction, allowing you to overcome enemies and solve some environmental puzzles, and chain together attacks to stay in the air. Rim Duressa from Morgandag, a game where you need to carefully manage your resources because fuel is limited and you'll die if time runs out. You're in a procedurally generated world, divided into sections where you actually play a roguelike through the first section, and then eventually try to find a new home world to save humanity. Skelemania by Banal. This is an open-world Metroidvania with interconnected single-screen environments. You play a skeleton that keeps gaining new abilities, including the ability to roll your head down narrow passages to reach new places. There's no combat, there's a super limited color palette, lots of secret areas, some sequence breaking, and new abilities that don't negate the old ones, but you have to use them together. Sunless Sea from Fail Better Games. This game features ship-to-ship combat, ship-to-monster combat, and lots of creepy underworld environments where you have to sail to new ports to learn the history and try to keep enough supplies on hand to keep your crew from starving to death along the way. Westerado Double Barreled by Ostrich Banditos. You're a gunslinger in the Old West looking for the man who killed your family. You take on quests to learn more and get a more accurate description of the killer, and along the way you make alliances, get into shootouts, and you're allowed to kill whoever you want, whether they're friendly or not, on a grand Wild West adventure. And the winner for the best action adventure or action RPG
is
Ori and the Blind Forest.
Yeah!
So we talked about this in a bunch. It's beautiful.
Yes, we did.
It's a huge open world. It's really solid.
Yes.
You should go play it.
Yes, definitely.
And our honorable mentions are Axiom Verge, which we also talked about quite a bit.
Yes, we did.
Odalis the Dark Call.
Yep.
Another game that we've talked about a bit. And a game that we haven't talked about much at all, which is Skelemania.
Yes.
So this one is kind of like out of nowhere. It just showed up. It's actually a free download.
I like free.
Yeah, so you're like this little skeleton dude. You're going. There's like tons of secrets. There's lots of alternate paths to take. There's a whole section of the game you won't even find most likely on your first try. So you learn a lot of advanced techniques to get through the environment, and you roll your head around. There's a good little sense of humor. You talk to frogs. It's a whole thing.
Do you kill bunnies?
There are no bunnies. You actually don't kill anybody. There's no way to harm enemies in this game. You just avoid them.
Aww.
So, there you go. All right, we'll go straight into the best action game for 2015.
Best action game, and the nominees are...
The nominees are Broforce from Free Lives. This is a game that just keeps on moving as players unlock new characters and swap between them each time a new POW is rescued or when they are killed, which could happen quite frequently. Players need to change up their strategies frequently when dealing with heavy machine gun characters versus a few of the melee fighters, and every character has different special moves. The Curse of Isios from Loco Molito. This is an arcade-style action game that requires you to complete the entire game from start to finish while taking on a lot of mythological creatures from Ray Harryhausen films and other giant beasts. Curses and Chaos from Tribute Games. This is mostly a melee-based fighter where you face 10 waves of enemies before taking on a boss, but as you play you'll pick up a lot of single-use projectiles and special weapons, and you collect a lot of materials to build powerful spells, and you can eventually unlock a better ending. Downwell from Mobbin. This is technically a descent-based platformer, but it's more action than platformer with a focus on weapons and the fact that you're basically going to be shooting all the way down as you go. And if you're really good at the game, you technically won't even be on platforms because you'll be bopping on enemies' heads to rack up huge combos. Hotline Miami 2, Wrong Number from Denaton Games. Instead of playing as one character as you did in the original, you play as many, with the narrative focusing on a number of different interconnected events, adding some context to the events of the first game, and allowing for combat to change quite a bit from character to character, as certain characters specialize in different types of weapons. The Next Penelope from Aurelian Regard. The game looks like an F-Zero clone, but is actually a mixture of top-down combat racing, arena-style combat against bosses, and skill-based challenges. The game focuses on Odysseus' wife Penelope and what she does while he's away on his adventure, but set in a flashy, futuristic environment. As you play, you earn new abilities, and these abilities are multifaceted, including a harpoon that lets you grab enemies, but it can also be used to open up alternate paths on the track. Not a Hero from Roll 7. Roll 7 is the studio between Ollie Ollie, and this game does have a bit of a bullet ballet feel with you dodging in and out of cover, dashing forward, taking down enemies, and stylishly finishing them off. While you can stand back and pot-shot bad guys, you're rewarded for getting up close, performing execution-style kills and critical attacks, and sliding on the floor to trip enemies. Each assassin has a different set of abilities, including their weapons, ammo capacity, firing rate, and movement speed, and new assassins are unlocked as Bunny Lord's approval rating increases. Nuclear Throne from Vlambeer. This is a top-down, twin-stick, roguelike shooter with trademark Vlambeer over-the-topiness, like screen shaking and explosions, and you use a mutation-based upgrade system that allows you to change your abilities across each session. Oblitus from Connor Ullman. This is a roguelike where you're equipped with a spear and a shield. You start out the game from the same place each time, but you can branch out into different directions. This game forces you to improve your skills because you never get stronger between gameplay sessions, so tough enemies might kill you right away the first time, but eventually you learn how to defeat them and win. Ronin from Thomas Wachlowiec. This game mixes ninja action with turn-based strategy and allows you to do a lot of cool things like lure big samurai to fly at you, dash out the window, and fall to their death. You can knock bad guys into one another, but it can get tough when you get surrounded by enemies because you're kind of stuck in a loop where you're constantly dodging fire and then trying to line up an attack without getting killed. The Swindle from Size 5 Games. This cyberpunky, steampunky game has you breaking into a lot of different facilities to steal cash and hack computers, and you only have 100 days to complete the game, so that's 100 tries to get it right, or you have to start the whole game over from scratch. Titan Souls by Acid Nerve. Inspired by Shadow of the Colossus, you face off against gigantic creatures that can die in a single hit, but so can you. During the battle, you have to find their weak point and look for the tiny opportunity to take advantage of its exposure and shoot your arrow into it. Battles can last several minutes or be over in just a couple of seconds. And the winner for the best pure action 2D game is Downwell.
Woo!
That's right. And actually, for as many nominees as there are, we don't have any honorable mentions this time around.
What?
Yeah, it's Downwell is really solid. I mean, it's solid to the point that none of the other action games really fall into the same category. It is pure action, adrenaline-fueled, crazy, constant blowing things up. Yeah. It's really, really solid. So that is far and away the best action game from 2015.
Yep, so check it out.
Check it out. So before we get into the absolute best overall game from the year, I know you have a category that you just love doing.
Yes, I do.
And which one would that be?
The biggest disappointment.
Biggest disappointment. So as usual, I have to clarify that this is not going to be the worst games of 2015.
No, of course not.
So usually we're only interested in playing the best games to tell you, like, here's all the best 2D games that are out there right now.
Exactly.
But sometimes a 2D game looks pretty good and ends up not quite matching up to the expectations.
Nope.
So we got some of those, and what's the line?
The nominees are
Finding Teddy 2 from Storybird Games. This is a follow-up to the original point-and-click adventure where a girl's teddy bear is stolen. The game offers a large open world, with the player gaining new abilities and backtracking per metroidvania standards, but the player has to figure everything out for himself, and the geography is very disconnected, and there's no map. The player has a musicom with runes, some of which look strangely similar to one another, and it plays notes with a library of 80 words and very little direction of when to use which words. And the NPCs you speak to speak in broken English, making hints harder to detect. Olympia Rising from Paleozoic. In this game, you have to collect coins, running through the level killing enemies, and sometimes facing off against rising acid that'll kill you instantly if it touches you. If you make it to the end of the level and you're even 1 coin short, you have to play the whole level again. The problem is a lot of enemies take up to 5 hits to kill, and you have a very short-range weapon, making it very likely that they're going to hurt you before you can hurt them for very little reward. A lot of the strategies you have don't even come into play as you go along, so as you play, levels continue to get longer rather than getting harder, and to make things more difficult, there's a lot of one-way platforms that are graphically indistinguishable from solid platforms, so you don't know when you can jump through and when you're going to hit your head. There's also almost no feedback when you're fighting bosses. There Was a Caveman by Norris Ametnix. This is a platformer that requires precise jumps, but it's super hard to line up jumps because you have limited mid-air direction control, and instant death is everywhere. Plus there's a huge knockback from enemies, blind jumps, lots of repeated gameplay upon death. You can buy upgrades with collected skulls, but you lose some of the skulls every time you die, making it next to impossible to get any of the upgrades to one of the bosses. There's a really cumbersome slow-moving shmup sequence where you have a giant hitbox, you can't shoot fast enough to kill the enemies, and you get no reward for killing them. Later in the game, you have unpredictable disappearing, reappearing blocks, you have conveyor belt grass that you can't tell which direction it's moving, and a lot of other things that will frustrate and kill you. And for the biggest disappointment in 2D games for 2015, the winner is...
You mean the loser is...
The loser is...
There Was a Caveman.
There Was a Caveman. So this game is... It looks like it's got a lot going for it. It looked kind of like Tiny Barbarian, which is a really fun game. You like a little caveman.
Look like...
You got similar sort of gameplay, but man, it's like the jumping is very problematic. There's just loads of elements that are going to frustrate you and kill you along the way, and you kind of limp your way through the experience, but it's kind of a teeth grinder the whole way you're playing. So
We were not fans.
yeah, it was. It definitely needs some work. It's close to being good, but a lot of the design shortcomings keep it from ever really getting fun.
That's sad.
But
But,
on an opposite note,
yes.
guess what it's time for?
Time for a beer.
Time for a beer. Yes.
Yes.
So it's time for the best game of the year.
Best game of the year.
That's right.
Which
So
kind of sounds like beer.
best game of the beer.
Woo, beer.
All right. So the best 2D video game from 2015. The nominees are Axiom Verge from Thomas Happ Games, Downwell from Moppin, Master Spy from Turbogun, Mute Crimson Plus from Iced Lizard Games, Odalis the Dark Call from Joy Masher, Ori and the Blind Forest from Moon Studios, Shovel Knight Plague of Shadows DLC from Yacht Club Games. Alright, I got the winner in my hot little hand right here. You want to take a... yeah. How does that winner taste?
Oh, it tastes so good.
It's the best tasting winner we've had in years.
Yes.
Alright, so here it is.
In 4 years.
In 4 years. This is our 4th year doing the show. Doing the best of. It's crazy. It's crazy. What you it's being eaten by a horse.
You're tasting good, too.
Oh, my goodness. So, inappropriate horse eating humor. So, the winner, the best 2D video game from 2015 was... That was a weird drum roll.
Yes, it was. Sorry.
Ori and the Blind Forest.
Yay!
So we talked about it a bunch, but it really is the whole package. Solid Metroidvania, beautiful, atmospheric adventure.
It was gorgeous.
Yeah, it was wonderful. So it's like, when you look at it, you're like, man, that's a pretty game. But it's very solid to play as well. They have the overall game's pretty easy. Then you get into the dungeons, and they're more difficult and require you to use your skills. And then there's escape sequences where you have to completely be crazy to get through a whole big section.
Crazy!
With no checkpoints. It's fun. Anyway, it's a totally solid game.
You should check it out.
You should check it out. And
Trust me, I'm a horse.
that's right. And you should check out all the other nominees and winners in the categories, because we had some really good games in 2015.
Yes, we did.
All right, so that's all.
So, tell me where you can find out more about these games.
I guess I could tell you some of that stuff. So we have a website. It's exclusively dedicated to 2D video games.
Yes.
And it's called 8bithorse.com.
That's easy to remember.
Since he's the 8-bit horse.
I am the 8-bit horse.
And if you want to check out new 2D games that are in development, like down the road, what's going to come out in 2016, 2017 down the line.
Stuff that's going to be in our next video.
That's right. Check out our sister site, which is 2dradar.com.
You can remember that.
There you go. So lots of good games.
Yep.
From this year. More good games on the horizon, and we'll be around covering them some more.
We sure will.
All right. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
We love you.
Hey man, what you doing?
I'm playing Fortnite.
What'd you say? I can't hear you.
I'm playing Fortnite.
I think you got a thing in your mouth. What were you saying? I can't make...
I'm playing Miss Pac-Man, and you made me die.
I got next.
Ah!